Since he's your appointee to the Pathways.
That's perfect. Ready, Vicki? I would like to call to order the September 20th, 2017 board meeting of LCCC. First order of business are acceptance and approval of the minutes. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second. Go ahead.
Second.
Jeff? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? None are opposed. The minutes are accepted.
Trustees Barker
And yes, I'm sorry. Reports to the board. President Rhonda Priest from Staff Senate. Welcome back.
Thanks, everyone. We've had a busy few months. I know many of you, well, faculty and some students were able to leave for the summer, but staff, for the most part, has been on campus. And so we met with President Schaefer in June and just shared with President's Cabinet as well about our concerns about not having a strong representation on Staff Senate, which was hindering our ability to do the work that we felt we were tasked to do. And so that was very well received, and thank you for everyone that supported that, because we have since been able to fill most of our seats for Staff Senate. We have almost enough voting representation from across campus, and that's a huge accomplishment. And so we're looking forward to see what we can do this next year with better representation, and then also encourage other people that aren't voting members to also attend our monthly meetings that happen on the first Wednesday of each month. We had a Senate's roundtable discussion. I know you'll hear from Nate Huseman soon, who's the faculty president this year, Senate president, but we came together like we did in the year before, and we had a Senate roundtable and used that as a planning meeting during our in-service week, and we were very pleased with the participation, as well as coming up with some goals that we will look at in more detail, but to adopt either as a Staff Senate agenda item or for faculty, or as maybe some combined efforts that we want to work on based on the feedback from our constituents. We also had Dr. Schaefer come and answer questions during that time. Felt like it was a really good conversation, so thank you, Dr. Schaefer. We had our staff retreat that we have each summer. It was on campus this year for the first time in many. We were able to meet in the Pathfinder building where we had dinner tonight, and had good participation. We're able to do 2 half-day sessions, met in June rather than August, met on campus, and we think that increased our participation. And we were had 2 great speakers and good feedback, and we'll probably use the same format next year. This year, for those of you that were at the convocation for fall semester, the Staff Senate launched the Soaring Eagle Excellence Award. And so instead of doing the unsung heroes that we had done for the previous year, we are now looking at areas of campus that meet certain criteria that really uphold the values of LCCC, and those will and so we received some nominations from within Staff Senate. Maintenance and grounds were the ones that we wanted to recognize because of the work that they've done over the past few months to really make our campus, both the interior and exterior, really look so much better and take care of us so well. And so we honored them, presented the first Eagle Excellence Award, which many of you saw. We have 2 trophies that have been purchased, one for our Cheyenne campus and one for our Albany campus. And then that group will be responsible for choosing the next group to receive the award. And we hope it will pass through campus. It will be a traveling trophy, and we want people to really feel the honor that we expect it to feel honored when they receive that reward, and also to really be on the lookout for people who exemplify the LCCC values. The last thing that, a couple more things I want to mention as far as way that we're acknowledging staff is we have our new staff luncheon that we will have on October the 6th, that we will treat the new staff that have joined us within the last year to lunch and tell them a little bit more about Staff Senate. We're currently also participating in orientation and letting people know as they onboard with us about the Senates. And then our new staff, when they do join us, we are, Jennifer Hook from HR is providing those names to us. We're making a point to assign that person to 1 or 2 Staff Senate members and provide them with a lunch tote with LCCC logo and some other swag, so to make them very, very welcome and have another connecting point on campus. We had a great time recently with our faculty staff. We invited everyone, faculty and staff, to join us off campus for a little social time at the Accomplice a couple of weeks ago, and it was fun to meet some different people and to have that opportunity. And we had probably about a dozen people join us that night. And then lastly, looking forward to the leadership opportunities that HR is developing and providing on our campus. And so we're looking forward to those opportunities for both professional and classified staff. And specifically, we want to make sure that there are opportunities for people to grow professionally through on-campus opportunities, especially for those people who may have just joined us and may not qualify for those other professional development leadership opportunities, because many of them require you to be on campus at least 2 years in your position, and we want to make sure that we don't wait that long to start investing in our people. That's all I have. Any
Thank
questions
you.
for me?
Any questions for Rhonda? Sounds like you're very busy.
Madam
Thank
Chair,
you.
I don't have a question, but I did have the opportunity to attend your afternoon retreat. Thank you for allowing a trustee to participate
Absolutely.
in a rather exciting interaction among the students. We had a motivational speaker, and we got involved as a group, and we were doing a bunch of little things to get kind of groupy and so forth and so on. And I have to say that was very well done.
Yeah, thank you. John Rodale, if any of you know John, and he does improv. And so he taught us how to use that to handle stress and to be creative and enhance our communication in the workplace.
Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rhonda. And then we have the President of Faculty Senate, Nate Huseman.
That's right.
Okay.
Well, good evening. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to provide a brief update on sort of what Faculty Senate has been up to. Faculty Senate held its first meeting just a few Fridays ago on September 8th. The focus of that meeting was really for Faculty Senate to set academic or yearly goals. The reason we would like to have some goals that's sort of been perhaps missing over the last couple of years, we're hoping that the goals will help sort of give us a purpose for the year. Not only a purpose with respect to what Faculty Senate does, but also how Faculty Senate can be more ingrained or enmeshed within the campus community as a whole. Those goals currently are in draft form. We're hopeful to finish those up and finalize them this Friday at our second meeting. Once those are done, we'll be able to send those out campus-wide, hopefully. Additionally, another piece sort of dealing with the purpose aspect is really getting us to be more collaborative across campus. Collaborative not only with just faculty, but also other faculty related groups such as Rhonda said, staff, administration, the Center for Excellence in Teaching. To that end, we have a couple of initiatives, our ongoing collaboration with Staff Senate. We're hoping to have more staff faculty sort of get-togethers off campus as the semester progresses, provide an area for faculty and staff to sort of let loose, be social, and not talk about work, hopefully. Additionally, we're working with the Center for Excellence in Teaching. Author Ken Bain is coming on Friday, November 3rd. We're currently in discussions with the director, Carrie Brown-Herbst, to sort of have a faculty luncheon before his talk. The purpose behind that is obviously everyone likes food, but it also provides faculty an opportunity that late in the semester to sort of get together, have some good collaborative discussions about what Mr. Bain is talking about, and then segue into his discussion. And then finally, we're working with administration to work on, or at least provide feedback on, the part-time position description. As we speak, there is a part-time faculty forum being held to sort of garner some feedback from our adjunct faculty. So more updates on that as we go forward. We hope to have some solidified feedback to Dr. Powell no later than October 15th. Other than that, I can say that, Faculty Senate, we feel a renewed sort of purpose as we come back after last year. We look forward to a great, productive, and positive year as we go forward. Questions?
Very good. Any
Thought.
questions for Nate? Thank you. Thank you so much. I love this enthusiasm. Thank you.
He is enthusiastic.
Dr. Schaefer,
Yeah.
your report, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Good evening, everyone. I think maybe I'll start my report by welcoming our newest student ex officio trustee, Mr. Derek Goldfuss. Welcome to the table. I know you get a chance to update the board on all the wonderful things the Student Government Association is doing, and I would just encourage you to engage in the dialogue and the conversation. You have privilege of the floor, and we always want to hear from students. But welcome. Look forward to working with you over the course of the year. I think I'll start out with the institutional effectiveness report. In your materials, you should have our 2016-2017 KPI report card, which serves as the primary mechanism in which we report annually on institutional effectiveness. As you know, this is one of the requirements that your policy directs me to provide you on an annual basis. I'm to bring you a report on the effectiveness of the institution, either in late summer or early fall. And so hopefully this satisfies that expectation. I won't go through every line item in here, but I do want to call a few things out. So these, as you've heard from our institutional research office in the past, are a collection of key performance indicators and measures. We split our indicators into two types of indicators. We have effectiveness indicators and efficiency indicators. And the easiest way to think about the effectiveness side is the output, the productivity of the institution, and the efficiency is how efficiently we handle certain parts of our business as we go through. You'll see there's a grade associated for each indicator, as well as each measure go through. And I'll just kind of walk through these and highlight some things that I think are worth pointing out. First, and probably what you'll see throughout the report card, many of our indicators are influenced significantly by enrollment. Some are as clean as headcount and full-time equivalency. Others are different types of indicators that we use to assess productivity. So degrees produced per 100 FTE and how that influences that. And across the board, because the enrollment has been on a downward slide and finally leveling out here, you'll see that sort of reflected in some of the indicators, especially under the indicator grouping A, student participation and achievement, with 12-month unduplicated headcount and annualized full-time equivalency. When we get into market penetration, and I think some highlights right below that are our fall-to-fall persistence rates. As you know, many of the things we've been working on are intended to help us retain students that come through our door. And you'll see in our iPEDS cohort, the fall-to-fall persistence for both full-time and part-time students has actually been on an upward trajectory and posted B grades this year. And then at the very bottom of that one, enrollee success rate. This is probably one of the ones I think that I'm most proud of the institution for both pragmatic and then, of course, the more esoteric purposes. This is probably the most basic measure indicator of how well we're doing in helping students achieve their educational goal. And that's looking at how well they do in each and every one of our classes. And if you look and just kind of follow our trajectory, we've had significant increase year over year since FY14 in terms of the percent of our students who successfully complete their courses. Now, one of the utilitarian aspects of this is that there is an increasing amount of funding coming from the Wyoming Community College Commission that's allocated based on performance, and this is one of the key metrics, enrollee success rate as well. And so the faculty have really been doing an exceptional job in the classroom and helping more of our students succeed. Academic preparation, this indicator grouping is essentially how we look at how well we're fulfilling the mission that is focused on ensuring that students are prepared to succeed in college level coursework. And we look at this through two lenses predominantly. One is how well we're helping students who are pursuing adult basic education or general education and helping them succeed there. And the other one is how well we're doing with students who come to us and need some type of remediation or developmental coursework, predominantly in English and in mathematics. And you could look through and really made some great strides this year. In fact, our participation in the high school equivalency programs and the outcomes, the percent of those folks participating that actually achieved their high school equivalency all went up significantly and posting an A grade for those two measures. And then developmental math continues to post good grades, but really developmental English and our faculty like Mr. Huseman there have done a fantastic job. As you recall, we're in our second year of the redesign of developmental English, and our faculty took about 1.5 years to research and design a model that blended two sort of reforms in the field, if you will. One is taking and actually integrating reading and writing from a developmental perspective, and the other one is actually using a co-requisite or combined developmental and college level supports. And so the success of our students in developmental English courses went up substantially. But I think the thing that really jumped out to me is that if you look at the success of our developmental students, so those students, and for this measure, it's predominantly those that came in the fall and were required to take developmental English, then succeeded in their first college level English course. And if you take a look at that, make sure I get it here right so I don't miss on that. We went from 64% in FY14 to almost 90%, 89.7% of those students who took a developmental class and then succeeded in their first college level English class. And that's absolutely fantastic in terms of really seeing how that redesign has impacted those students. The next grouping is transfer preparation. So this focuses on our mission of helping students prepare to transfer to a four-year institution. And here we saw sort of the flattening out. You'll see the B grades for the enrollments in there. We did not produce as many degrees. In fact, actually went down in the degree portion of it, and still are struggling with the matriculation rates predominantly to the University of Wyoming, but to other four-year institutions as well. The one real highlight here, if you look at C4.A, this is the success after transfer when we look at their first term GPA. And we actually try to benchmark that against native university students with that. So this last year, all of our transfers to UW in their first term had an average 2.99 GPA. And that's even higher than the traditional native university students. And so when our students transfer, they do quite well at the university. Workforce development is one where we look at essentially how well we're preparing individuals to enter or advance in the workforce. This is the more applied component of our mission, and there's a series of indicators that are similar to transfer, but this is where we look at not only enrollments, but also workforce degree production, as well as we flip to the other side, in-field job placement, employer satisfaction, and licensure and certification pass rate. In-field job placement rates went down, and one of the challenges I think we're seeing with that is the leakage of some of our graduates to Northern Colorado, and they're not showing up in some of those data. We have been working with the Department of Workforce Services on a better structure to get access to more comprehensive data sets versus just using graduate surveys and alumni surveys to figure out how they're doing with job placement. And the data from the Department of Workforce Services sort of paints a better picture, if you will. So next year we may have a different data source and benchmarking system for that one. Community development, then, that focuses on the fourth prong of our mission, which really looks at how well we help the community and serve the community. And so we look at the customized training activity that we do for community businesses, the numbers of businesses served. We look at total participation in non-credit life enrichment courses. And then we look at community market penetration for things like cultural activities, public meetings, and sporting events. And I had a B grade across there. We tend to do strongly in these areas. There were a couple areas where we slipped to C's, but really like to see some of the shift in the movement in things like the participation in sporting events. So Director Noble, I think you're helping us kind of pull that in the right direction. And then the last indicators, this is where we slip into our key efficiency indicators. As I said, the effectiveness are more about the outcomes we produce. But we know that we have to be able to produce certain outcomes in a certain fashion. And so we look at things such as instructional productivity. And so we want students to complete their degrees as soon as they can and without having to take significant additional credits. And so you can see some progress more in the certificates in terms of average credits to completion, where that's actually dropped significantly. The average credits to completion for degree completers slipped a little bit from last year, but still, below the 72, which is where we certainly want to be. Our benchmark right now compared to other institutions is about 80 credits there. Time to completion, though, has been moving in the right direction in terms of getting students through their program and to their degree in a much better fashion. And then we look at things like percent of sections taught by full-time faculty, knowing we want our full-time faculty to be in front of the majority of our students, and we do quite well there. One of the struggles we have is the average credit section fill rate, and so that's essentially looking at the number of seats that are available for an average credit class and how many students or what percent of those seats have been filled. And it's one of the challenges we're trying to address by looking at how we schedule our courses, the number of general education course offerings, and trying to really see if we're sort of fractioning and splintering the enrollments, which is leading to lower course fill rates there. And so not bad, but we have some room to grow there, I think, as we go through it. Fiscal stewardship then looks at expenditures per FTE, so enrollment. So this is one of those where if the budget doesn't drop substantially and enrollment drops, you'll see those expenditures go up. and that's what we're seeing there. Core expenditures per completion, though, is moving in the right direction. So we're spending less to get students to a completion, and that's what we want to see. That's really showing the movement towards efficiency as we move in that direction. And then, as you know, we track expenditures in instruction and expenditures in the primary student areas, instruction, academic support, and student services. We have a goal to have at least 50% of our core expenditures focused on instruction, because that's where we know we're intersecting with students the most when we get right into it. And then we have a goal of 70% for expenditures in the 3 areas of instruction, academic support, and student services. We have not hit either of those goals, but we've certainly been hanging and trying to do well with keeping up towards that progress. And so you can see a general progress in both of those areas where we're getting more of our money going to the places that really impact students the most. College affordability then looks at things like tuition and fees, net price of attendance, as well as the foundation activities here. And when we posted, the foundation has done really a fantastic job. If you look at the last 2 indicators, the percent of students receiving privately funded aid, as well as the total privately funded aid awarded, really posting exceptional increases there and earning A grades. The number of donations to the LCCC Foundation actually slipped. You'll see that posted a D grade, but it's a little bit misleading. While we had fewer in number, the gifts were actually significantly higher, and that's helped post better outcomes in the other areas. We do track tuition and fees. Of course, we can control the fees. We don't control tuition, and some of the impacts there are just the increases in tuition over the past few years. And net price of attendance is an indicator that's a little bit challenging. It's intended to look at what the net price to a student like Derek would be on an annual basis. One of the challenges is it looks at a very discrete cohort of students and not a very large cohort of students. I don't know the sample size, but it vacillates then. And so if you have a small cohort in one time that spends a lot, another one that does not spend a lot, it can make that vacillate up and down. And then the last one is campus climate, and that looks at a variety of things from the student perspective as well as the employee perspective, and gives us a sense of the type of climate that we're providing for our students. And there's some things that are certainly worth celebrating there, but there's also some things that we really need to work on as well. So that's a very broad brush. Our overall grade this year, again, was a B. There's a lot in here, so you ask questions now. I'm happy to try to answer it. If you want to digest it and have a follow-up conversation, I'm good with that too. But Madam Chair, I didn't want to take a significant amount of time going through it, but I do want to give attention to the report card. So questions?
Any questions? It was a very good report. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I have 2 questions.
Yes, please.
What's A minimum, B minimum, C minimum, and D minimum?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Trustee Erickson, some of you mathematicians, so Trustee Salazar may like that as well. That's essentially the minimum of the grade range. So those areas A, B, C, D is essentially our rubric for how we score. So we use a variety of indicators. We use 5 years of data. We use a benchmark. We use a goal. And then we calculate a mean for that. That sets the minimum of our B grade. So assuming our performance over time, a benchmark that's relative to that, what our goal is, and we look at that to generate a mean, and then essentially use standard deviations to set the scoring rubric. So one standard deviation above that is the top of the range for a B, or the A minimum. One standard deviation above that, of course, would be the top of the A grade. One standard deviation below would be the minimum of a C. One standard deviation below that, or 2 below the mean, would be a D, and then 1 below that, of course, would be an F. And so that's essentially the grading rubric. So if you look at 12-month unduplicated headcount, for us to get a B in that, we would have had to have had 6,795 unduplicated students this year, and we had 5,966.
Okay, so that then determines whatever our particular measurement is for that key indicator. It identifies then what the grade's going to be.
That is correct.
So that's why we have a D in that one.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so another way to look at it is if you were to look at the mean, so the average of our enrollment, unduplicated headcount in 14, 15, 16, 17, our benchmark and our goal, and calculate the mean, we should have had 67.95, which would have given us a B. That would have been the bottom range of a B, which means basically that for our past performance, as well as our benchmarks, as well as our goal, we're doing at least that well. Because we fall below that, then you could see where we start to fall on the scoring rubric.
Okay, second question then. You've helped me understand how you came up with the overall grade. The overall grade then is a mean of all of the indicators. So we come up with a B for student participation and achievement. Thank you.
You answered your own question.
Simple.
Yeah.
I didn't understand it before that. I can tell you that.
And we do, Madam Chair, members of the board, there is a comprehensive KPI manual that gets into the math. Trustee Salazar may be interested in that and looking at it.
You read it.
Yeah, just
send us a little
orientation.
But the system has been one that's drawn some accolades, and we've been nominated for a Bellwether Leadership Award for this system, and other institutions have tried to copy and use this. It's comprehensive. It's integrated into strategic planning, budget process, human resource prioritization, academic program review, will be a non-academic service and function review. And so these indicators show up in a variety of places throughout the college's processes.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Schaefer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll keep going if that's okay with you and
Keep
go
going.
through. Item B, I just wanted to inform you of a letter that the community college presidents have composed and essentially sent to the governor's office. And this is regarding to some past conversation we had pertaining to the interpretation of House Bill 80 from 2 sessions ago, which essentially pertains to the community college funding model. And as I think we've discussed in the past, there has been some different interpretation on how the implementation of that legislation would lead to the calibration of the state aid for community colleges budget request. And in simplest terms, there seems to be 2 camps, one that believe that we should bring an exception budget request for when we recalibrate and have that advance through the state's process. The other camp, and the one that we sit in, is that the actual standard budget amount is recalibrated more like K-12, and that becomes part of the standard budget request to the governor and ultimately to the legislature. And so we submitted the letter to provide our perspective, and in a nutshell, basically what it says is, we recognize the challenges with exception budget requests. It's one of the reasons why we wanted to move away from the enrollment growth mechanism that we used in the past, because we know that exception budget requests are generally not looked on favorably. They are complex in their understanding. Sometimes they would lead to legislators thinking, why are we continually getting requests for additional funding? They're one-time in nature, which means they're volatile. And they're rarely, if ever, funded in their entirety. In fact, outside of what the governor helped us do last session, over the 8 years in which we had enrollment growth exception requests, they were never funded in their entirety. In fact, I think we achieved about 70% of the funding. And those requests were based off of legislative direction and how we would calculate enrollment growth. So from our perspective, any interpretation that would suggest that House Bill 80 was designed to continue the use of exception requests is a flawed interpretation. Half of our interest in work with the legislature was to get away from the exception request approach. And that's what that letter essentially outlines. We'll be meeting with the governor next Thursday to go through the budget, and I'll be happy to update you on how that meeting goes.
Madam Chair, may I ask a question? Are you at liberty to identify the camp that doesn't agree with us?
Mr. Chairman, Trustee Erickson, from what I understand, it's a combination of the legislative service offices and perhaps the budget division that are using that. And I don't know, Trustee Ketchum maybe could put on his day job work, but I think some of the feedback to the budget division has been directly from LSO in terms of interpreting the legislative pieces with it. But that's what I understand it to be. Sure. Fair.
Good answer. Any other questions?
Thank you, Trustee. All right, Madam Chair. I don't know that I'll give you a major update on the building campaign. You heard a little bit of that at dinner. with the foundation board and what they're working on, but probably the thing that's of most interest to you is the materials that have gone and will be going out to the community this week. You've seen and received a copy of the mailer that went out outlining the different projects, the concepts with them. As you heard at dinner time, the website for the campaign is up and live, or should be up and live as well. And then the foundation is really digging in, starting to get some of the promotional activities out there. And then I, along with other staff, will start hitting the presentation circuit, and we'll be getting out to the community and just talking about the different projects and educating the folks and answering questions as we go through. So lots more activity come, 7 weeks till election day. So folks will be busy. As always, as you hear comments, questions, feedback, please do share that with us. We are compiling and growing a list of frequently asked questions that will be available for folks to be able to go out and kind of look and see if we can answer the questions that seem to be coming up the most.
Madam Chair. Yeah. I just want to say to you, Dr. Schaefer, if you want any of us to participate in any of these events that you're speaking at, please let us know.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Trustee Soto, I will. In fact, we recognize because of the shorter time frame that we'll have to get many folks out there, sharing the message and talking about the project. So we'll take you up on that. Thank you.
I'll second that.
And we can take those engagement cards. If you don't have any, please ask for some and give them to your friends and to folks in the community, asking them to put up a yard sign or give their name to us to say that they are supporting our project. So, or if they want to be involved at a deeper level.
Great. Thank you. And just a quick update. I said that I would bring the progress on the community planning initiative that the college is partnering with the chamber and a variety of other organizations on. Not much to report at this point other than we've received funding from the Joint Powers Board and have actually signed the contract through the Cheyenne Community Foundation with Market Street, which will be the consultant helping us with this progress. So the contract's been signed. The first step that we'll do from here is start assembling the remainder of the steering committee. There's a technical advisory committee that will be assembled, and then scheduling the first visit to Market Street to the community. Part of phase one includes a comprehensive community assessments. They'll be holding open houses, doing a survey, holding focus groups and meeting with folks. And so don't be surprised if you get invitations to be part of those conversations, but we're moving right ahead with that. And then, Madam Chair, you just have a copy, just for your information. You likely saw this in the newspaper this morning. There was an op-ed piece that was essentially authored and signed by the 7 community college presidents and Dr. Nichols from the University of Wyoming, providing our perspective on the recent executive order to essentially withdraw the protections that President Obama had placed for childhood arrivals. So essentially children who were brought to the United States by their parents who were undocumented immigrants and have essentially grown up here and have only known the United States as their home. DACA essentially through executive order provided protections. As we saw with President Trump through executive order, those protections are slated to be removed now within about 5 months. And the president has asked Congress to actually implement legislation that would address it through what he sees as the appropriate venue. Our letter is probably a bit more utilitarian. One of the things we recognize outside of the fact that these individuals really don't know another home other than the United States and in some cases Wyoming. But from a pragmatic side, they're also a influx of folks that are filling our jobs and going to school and becoming sort of the future. There was a nice article of a student from the University of Wyoming that was in the Boomerang that sort of highlights that. And so the presidents got together and said we should at least express our perspective. The foundation of this opinion piece is really more of a letter to our 2 senators and our congresswoman and asking them to dig in and see if they can resolve this one specific issue in a timely fashion that doesn't impact these, quote unquote dreamers. And then the last thing I want to share is some good news. So some of you may recall, it's been a while since we announced this, but LCCC and Laramie County School District 1 participated in the Kresge Foundation's FAFSA Completion Challenge. So this was a challenge that was really intended to help drive up the rate at which students file the free financial aid application for federal financial aid. And we recognize Wyoming struggled with this in a variety of reasons. The LCCC has really kind of led the state in trying to, stimulate and get the FAFSA filing up, especially for those students that were turning away Pell Grant opportunities. And so the FAFSA challenge pitted us with against some pretty large communities: Austin, Texas; Jackson, Mississippi; Jacksonville, Florida; Phoenix, Arizona. And we measured the rate of filing of the FAFSA before the challenge and afterwards. And I'm delighted to say that Cheyenne took second place in terms of the largest increase in FAFSA filing, and that earned us a $50,000 prize to continue our effort and our work in this area. So when you think about that, that's pretty impressive. And I should be able to identify this, but our starting filing rate, if I remember, Cheyenne, right here, I have that right. We increased it by
47%, right?
Correct. Significantly with that, which makes it in the publication has a nice quote from our students in there, which I think is pretty impressive. So just good news. It's worth sharing. Wonderful partnership with the school district, with our financial aid office, with folks in high school programs, and really kind of an exciting award to put on the bookshelf. I don't know if they're going to let me keep the prize or not, but I kept it long enough to show you. So with that, Madam Chair, that concludes my report. Happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Any questions for Dr. Schaefer? If not, we'll move on to work items. Recreation and Athletic Complex, better known as the RAC. Vice President Rick Johnson and Ken Tobin and Associates.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. Well, we've reached an interesting pinnacle here. We have 2 draft level 2 reports finally completed for 2 of the 3 projects. I'll explain the difference when we get to the residence hall. We have 3 individuals from Tobin and Associates with us again. Ken's going to share with you some basic highlights of what's happened since the last board meeting and present to you the draft level 2.
Madam Chair, members of the board, good evening, and thank you once again for inviting us to your meeting. As Rick mentioned, we have Will Wedemeyer and Josh Schmidt with our firm. Will is one of our partners. Josh is an architect. And I think the way this is going to go, guys, I'll take the easy questions and then come on up. And they start grilling us on this. This past month, we spent the majority of our time completing this level 1, level 2 report that you have before you. And this report was prepared following an outline that the state has per statute for state projects. So we worked on that. We also were able to schedule a 3rd public meeting, more or less. A group of students met with us, and we presented the plans and sketches that we shared with you last month. We got a lot of great response from the students. They offered some comments, but basically they were, I believe, behind the project 100% and thought, let's move forward. And this building does need quite a bit of work and bring her up to the 21st century. So that was a very good meeting with the students. The floor plans that we shared with you last month, the perspective, the sketches, we haven't done a lot with those. The cost estimate, we're still setting at about a little over $14 million for this project all in. So we're running with that. I was going to run through this table of contents briefly. The way the report is structured is we describe the project. We offer the project goals, the needs, opportunities in the project. And then Rick worked with us on the financing portion of this report. Then we go into just some boilerplate background information such as ownership, permits, environmental considerations, and the utilities to the building. We also then, during the community portion of the report, talk about the 3 meetings we had. We had a meeting at the public library one afternoon at noon. We had a meeting at the LCCC in that same evening. And then we had this third meeting on campus with the students. So the minutes of those meetings are included. Then we get into the space utilization and design, and that's where we have the plans, perspectives, and talk about that. Finally, we have a copy of our opinion of probable cost or the estimate for the project. And then we wrap all that up with some information from our consulting engineers and then the appendix supporting documentation on that. So with that, Madam Chair, I think, Rick, unless you have anything you want to add, Scott was a great asset on this as well. Got a great guy there. Madam Chair, we'll take questions.
Questions from the board? I think we know a lot about these projects by now.
And we're getting more, Madam Chair, we're getting more information, which is great.
We are getting a lot of it.
The design that you fellows have been coming up with is just absolutely fascinating. And I have to commend Scott Noble for thinking out of the box when he first arrived here to look at how to deal with the multi-purpose facility. And the way you've come up with this design, I think it's just superb. I do have a question on the third floor. I'm on page 14. You have the bathrooms off in a corner, and I'm wondering if that is a far stretch from, say, the Champions Club Lounge. Just doesn't seem to be very accessible. That's just the only observation I have.
Yeah, I think, at this juncture, we have a lot of work yet to complete on as we go forward. And we want to, of course, revisit this with not only the board, but Scott's group and students again, and kind of fine tune, tweak this plan. But we'll certainly take that into consideration and see how that would maybe be modified in the future.
For us older people, sometimes it takes a little while.
I know what you're saying there, Don. Glad to see Joe's keeping this meeting moving right along too, by the way. But, I'll defer on the bottled water.
What you're really saying is this is not the final product. There's more to be done.
Yeah,
That's why I spoke.
I like to say that the final product's when you guys move in with your students, then we have a final project.
Madam Chair, if I may, members of the board, that's actually a good point. Just a reminder of the planning process and the levels. We're at a level 1, 2 here. Level 2 concludes essentially a feasibility study, which means within the parameters of the project, the space constraints, site constraints, budget constraints, needs, programming, is there a feasible option to address those in there? And that's what it represents. After this, you go into schematic design, and that's where things really start to get sharp. The pencil starts to work out. And so some of those details can still change as you go into level 3 and certainly into the bidding process, construction documents, and then construction itself. And so just a good reminder at level 2, what we're trying to say is that the project, given its parameters, is feasible. And here's one option to demonstrate its feasibility. Is that a fair assessment?
I think so, Joe. I think so.
Gentlemen, would you like to say anything?
Thanks, guys. Okay, well, thanks again.
Thanks for coming. Appreciate it. Fine Arts Draft Level 2 Planning, Rick Johnson again with Chris Weinman from Simple Brown.
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the board, Chris just arrived right in the perfect timing, and he as well will give you a brief update on what's transpired since last board meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Madam Chair, members of the board, President Schaefer, good to see you all. Fortunately, it was a south wind coming up, so it helped me make it on time. We're pleased to have submitted our report to you. I think many of the components you'll find are very similar. What differentiates a building like this is the inclusion of the input for specialized design parameters like acoustics and performance equipment and some of those things. So since my colleague Kevin Beechner was last with you, we have been refining the project in tandem with our cost estimator. We've been estimating all the way along to steer the project. And so we have been working with them to ensure that we remained within the budget parameters that LCCC had set for us. So we were ensuring that not only the construction value, but also the soft costs, the escalation, the contingencies could all be covered within the $14 million. So the final portion of the report that you see in front of you is a very detailed cost estimate in that regard, covering all of those things. That meant that in our work with our engineers and consultants, we were trying to narrow down and make the new construction, the addition to the Fine Arts Building, as efficient as we could possibly make it, and to make sure that we weren't cutting short the performance equipment portion of the budget, so that we wouldn't end up opening a building and then wishing that we had a bunch of things in there. So we were trying not to be short-sighted about reducing those things. So we put a great deal of pressure on ourselves to reduce square footage in two ways. One was to be as efficient as we possibly could about the new construction in terms of both its height and in terms of the seat count and what we were doing with circulation space. The second was to be as careful as we could about space that we reorganized or relocated within the existing Fine Arts Building. I think when Kevin was in here, we talked about, you know, reorganizing almost everything in the building to work well with the new performance venue. And we took a second look at that and said, there are a number of spaces here that have had investments recently, like the Wingspan multimedia area and other things that didn't need to be relocated. So we tweaked the plan to minimize the amount of relocating that we were doing. We still feel that that plan represents and offers the visual arts, theater, and music programs specifically real opportunities for growth and quality in their programs and their instruction, but without relocating as many square feet in the building. And that just it enables us to keep the whole project within the budget. So you're looking at about 11,000 new square feet, just over 11,000 new square feet. And within the overall square footage of about 45,000 square feet in the existing building, about half of those square feet involve creating a new use. You know, trading spaces around, relocating things like the PR offices, those sorts of things. But we're really trying hard to minimize the number of functions that get relocated. So expensive infrastructure like IT isn't relocated. We are creating some additional offices and support space for that, but we're not picking it up and moving it to another portion of the building. Some things like music, like theater, we are doing exactly that. And those are so that those can have functional advantages in terms of how the building operates. So within the report, you are seeing narratives from our various engineers, including the acousticians and theater consultants. We also, because of the change from initially doing the project up to the north of Tom Bauman Loop to adjacent to Western Fine Arts, we did take the time to do some additional geotechnical and soil analysis next to the building. Our structural engineers had to go back and redo some work because they have to plan for building a new structure next to an existing structure, and that is a challenge. So we're making provision for that in terms of the soils, the foundation system, and those kinds of things. But I think at the end of the day, this area of the campus, in conjunction with the library project that you're talking about, stands a real opportunity of being perceived to be a completely new gateway to the north edge of LCCC, which I think is going to be a great opportunity. So I'd happily answer any questions that you may have.
Questions? Board members?
Madam Chair, can I ask? Chris, you folks and you personally have a long history with this project at the college. I know you did some planning on it before I arrived, and we've been working with you for a while. And I know we didn't ask you to do a facilities condition assessment specifically on this, or looking at, you know, space needs and things like that. But Semple Brown, of course, has done a lot of this work throughout the region. Maybe just help remind me, maybe as well as the board, your assessment of sort of this space from a functional functional educational perspective. I think that's one of the things that maybe has gotten lost is the sort of the needs for deferred maintenance and really addressing the issues just to keep the building running, but really how they're designed really not to engage and encourage the type of arts education that we're trying to do there. So maybe just a few comments to remind us on that as you look at it, because I know it impacts the cost as we talk about HVAC and just sort of the core functional things with the building.
Absolutely. It's worth remembering, and Bill would ask me to remind everybody, the western portion of fine arts has not been renovated in a comprehensive way since it was built. The eastern portion has. And so when you look at the facilities condition index for the total building, it's averaging across both of those. And it's taking advantage of the fact that you had a lot of renovation in eastern to pull up the score of western. And from a functional standpoint, most of what I'd call the specialized spaces, like the studio spaces for visual arts, for music, for theater, I mean, there is no instructional space for theater within the building at all. Instruction is expected to take place inside the playhouse. Well, that means that you're displacing the next performance all the time to be able to do classroom instruction and rehearsal. It's a very inefficient way to operate a facility like that. So creating some instructional space was important. The second was having space of a character that takes advantage of what the building offers. That building has additional height and volume available in the structure, but its interiors are designed like 1980s classrooms with a drop ceiling and with none of the technical things that, and you know, the ability to pound into the wall so you can hang up artwork so that you can critique it as a group. If that's a regular gypsum board wall, you're damaging the building. We need to include walls that enable you to be able to nail into the wall and take stuff back down. We need to be able to create the kind of acoustical separation between practice rooms that you need for simultaneous rehearsals of music. We need to take advantage of every bit of cubic volume in the space that we can do. And that space is there if you poke your head up above the ceiling. So there are real ways to make that building function better and respond to the current needs of students in these creative disciplines, and really to offer, you know, Daniel and his faculty some real flexibility in terms of how they deliver the program to your students. The combination of that and a place on campus to actually demonstrate your skills by performing and by hosting artists here is really a wonderful thing. I think that the chance to connect the lobby of a performance space with the gallery for the visual arts and to show off all of that work, combined performance and visual arts for the community, is going to be a wonderful thing, whether it's for performances or whether it's for lectures, assemblies, and academic events in the performance hall.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Certainly.
I think what I like about these projects most of all is the student involvement, where we all find out what people on this campus want, and mostly the students. And they're at least on my committee for the residence hall, and I think they're on all committees.
Yep.
Is that correct?
Yeah, and I think that the real opportunities here for students to shape how they program and participate in this work, and what, I mean, really, I think this project gives students in these areas a chance to make a quantitative and qualitative leap forward in terms of their participation and their ability to engage the entire student body in seeing what they do.
Thank you.
Thank
Love
you.
your enthusiasm.
We're very excited about it.
It's great. Any questions from the board? Thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Gladly.
Glad you could come quickly.
We appreciate it. Yeah.
Okay, Rick Johnson, Residence Hall, Level 2 update.
Madam Chair, members of the board, as Joe pointed out, these are level 2 studies, which are feasibility analysis, really. You don't have one for the resident hall project from Method, but you will when we get to the October board meeting. With our arrangements with Method, we actually built in an extra piece to their work that goes beyond the typical level 2 program. And that piece is having them take their work through schematic design. That's not been part of what Chris and Ken have done with their level 2s. So we added on this piece, which is why it's going to take a little longer. They're currently working on that right now. And so I look forward to them being here in October to present you that draft level 2. What is in your board packet, however, is some slight tweaking to the renderings because we had a workshop with them since the last board meeting. Tweaked that a little bit. Nothing substantial there, but what now you're also seeing in that packet are floor plans. They're conceptual, but they're probably pretty close. And if you study them, you'll get a sense of these neighborhoods, where the flexible spaces, kitchens, and so forth. So when you get your level 2 from Method in October, you're going to have this very detailed plus schematic design. The other part of the schematic design objective here with the res hall was to create a greater likelihood that we could pinpoint cost as tightly as possible. And having them go all the way out through schematic design is bringing a level of detail there that will help us in that regard. So right now, just a few tidbits. The res hall's still coming in at or slightly below the $28 million mark. It was recently re-estimated again with the involvement of some contractors. And so it continues to remain solid. I think that's about all I can share with that, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Could you please tell this board and our visitors why we need this res hall, how many people we had apply to our residence halls, and how many we can accept on campus at this time?
Yes, Madam Chair, and I may not have this data exactly right, but I think I was reading that we had applications in the high 500s for the res hall this year, and of course, we only have 276 beds. Oddly enough, which kind of reaffirms our thoughts about the sweet spot for bed capacity, we'll max out in the high 500s when we have a new hall and still the West Hall before that gets raised. That number is matching about the application rate that I think you're referring to.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for telling us that.
Yep.
Any questions? If not, thank you very much. Appreciate it. We now have an approval item for the ACCT voting delegate and alternate for our trip to Las Vegas for that meeting. I guess Wendy and Bob and I are going to that meeting. So one of us should be the voting delegate, and good night, guys. Thanks for coming. And one should be an alternate. May I have a motion?
Well, I'm going to nominate Carol to be the delegate. Can I also nominate Bob?
Well, we should discuss.
Do you want to discuss it?
Well, I'll make the nomination.
Okay.
Someone can second it, and then we'll discuss it.
Did you nominate Bob?
Yes, I'll nominate Bob to be the alternate.
And we have a second from Dawn. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Anyone opposed this motion?
With the railroad job.
Yes,
We rolled over you.
I just want to know what.
We'll talk about it.
Later.
I'm also going,
No, I'm just wondering about.
Madam Chair, I'm also going to the meeting, but,
You are also
yes, but
going.
I skipped out of that one, so
Excuse me.
that is awesome.
Let's. I'm sorry, Jeff. Would you like to be a delegate or an alternate? You have plenty of time to do this later. Thank you. I'm sorry I overlooked you.
Madam Chair, attending previous ACCT functions, the delegate responsibility is one to vote on any of the major issues that they have. And the alternate is obviously if the delegate cannot be there, which she will be there. So I would say you got a pretty simple job.
Okay, good job.
Thank you
And
for
You've been
accepting.
there before, right?
I have been there before and I have voted before. And I like this letter from Walt Raggy. He talks about who we should vote for from CWC, who is Carlton Underwood. He says that he is a very good delegate and it's his second time running. So that's one person that I would vote for. And Don, what would you like to say?
Well, he is not a delegate. He's a board member.
He is a board member.
Right, and representing is also diversity. He
Committee
comes.
for a second term.
I think isn't he active on the reservation?
I will have to
believe.
research that.
Yeah, I believe he
Thank
is. He's from Central Wyoming.
Uh-huh.
This is his second term.
Okay, it would be his second term.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for pointing that out. Board reports. Pathways, Bob, would you like to speak to your Pathways assignment, please?
Yes, and President Schaefer can add, right? So I was nominated, I guess, to be the board trustee representative to this Pathways Committee, right? And I guess that's one of the requirements, that they have a board trustee. And I also found out just the other day that I'm also going to Washington, D.C., which was news to me. So I have to kind of rearrange some things there in November and get up to speed. We've met 3 times. First time was March 3rd, and then yesterday and today. So the ones yesterday and today are the more informative, and I guess I'll give the short story rather than the long story. There's a lot going on in terms of the Pathways model, and it's all on here. Most of the board members have seen this already with the guided pathways implementation, but it's basically has to do with a lot of change coming forward. And right now, what is happening in the committee is lots of discussion around where we're at. That's how I see it, and it's very preliminary at this stage. But one thing that I thought was significant today was toward the end of the meeting, which are very concise, precise meetings, is the idea that there needs to be champions for this change. And that's going to be kind of an important thing, because there's more than likely possibly going to be resistance to any kind of change, especially if there's not understanding. So that's where I kind of put in. There's more to come. We have a follow-up meeting, I believe, in October 18th, which is my birthday. So
Remember that.
that's a good day to have it, right?
Vicky?
Yeah, so I have nothing else to say other than that, unless President Schaefer has something to add.
Madam Chair, all I'd add, it's been great having Trustee Salazar there, and I recognize that in some ways we're speaking Greek around him, but he's adapted quite well to the conversation, and really is giving, I think, a perspective on the work that we've done, but as he's pointed out, the work that will be before us to fully implement the Guided Pathways project. So thank you for appointing him, delegating him, assigning him to be your representative on that group, and certainly there will be more coming in the future in terms of our progress there.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you so much, Bob, for doing that, because I think we share the load around here. The trustees all have special work that they do. So we really appreciate that you took on that job.
Absolutely.
Madam Chair, may I ask a question of either Dr. Joe or Bob? Has the Pathways expert consultants, have they visited with us, or will that happen after your Washington, D.C. Meeting?
Madam Chair, Trustee Erickson, that is a good question. As part of the Pathways project, each institution is assigned a coach. Our coach is Linda Garcia, Dr. Linda Garcia, who is actually a vice president at the Center for Community College Student Engagement, the folks that help us with the CESI and the SENSE. We have had preliminary conversations with her. There's been a couple of webinars with all of the institutions participating to kind of set that stage. But in terms of technical assistance coming on campus or how the other resources will intersect with us, we'll probably learn more about that after the first institute, which is in mid-November, as Trustee Salazar has pointed out.
Thank you. Finance and facilities, Don?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
the F&F committee met last week, Trustee Ketchum and yourself were present as well. We reviewed the building projects that we went through today, as well as the update on the McIlvain Plaza, which we went by when we had supper. Hopefully that's going to be completed here before snow falls. It's moving along very well. We have the Crossroads repurposing is well underway with a lot of excellent student feedback. Talking about student feedback, they've met with the students. They've come up with a number of interesting feedback about where they like to study, where they like to socialize, where they want to have a Coke machine or whatever it might be. And I guess that there would be a review of that meeting with the students about the Crossroads. That I guess that happened already on the 19th. That must have been yesterday. And I assume that everything came out pretty much the way they anticipated it. The administration repurposing, as you know, we're concerned about where our boardroom is going to be in the future. And where it will be is not quite clear yet because we're still studying the various locations. But one of the locations was over in the EEC area down on the first floor. And what we learned is that that room, although it has two rooms and it gives us space, it's a rather noisy place. And so there's, when I say noisy, I guess there's a mechanical operations on top of the rooms. I don't know if I can't recall whether it's a pump of some sort, and then some other things that kind of create a lot of noise that might not be in the best interest for us conducting the meeting. So they're looking at a number of places. As I understand, the garden over here is still in the running.
The secret garden.
It's been called the mystery garden, but it's just right out to the left here in that area of space. And then I heard another possibility is utilizing room 178 and 179 as a possible location for because that's where we have our dinner, and that has the capability of closing off half of the room. So I am just reporting these discussions that we've had, not suggesting that we go forward with any one of the ideas because we're still in the speculative phase of the planning on that. The building authority will be meeting on the 25th to have a review of the bonds that they will be involved in relative to our bond election, assuming that the bond election passes favorably.
And that's September 25th.
No, I think it's October 25th.
October 25th. Thank you.
And the next meeting will not be on the second of the FNF. It will not be on the second Wednesday because October 11 and 12 is when we have the WAC conference in Casper. So it will be on the 16th at 11 a.m. That's my report. Anything else, Trustee Ketchum?
No, I believe you covered it.
Do a good job there, Don. Thank you. Do you want to make a motion for acceptance?
Oh, wait a minute. I didn't finish my report.
Oh.
I don't know why I didn't go on with the rest of it. I got down at the bottom and I missed the stuff up above. We also reviewed the fund balances for July 2017 and looked at our current and our balance sheets and our current budgets. And we didn't find anything that we had questions about. And so I make a motion that we approve the financial statements and the procurement contract for, I should say the procurement and contracting report for August 31.
I'll second.
Any questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion is unanimous, Vicki. Yes. And it was, Jess was seconded. ACC Advisory Board ex officio trustee, Butch Cato.
Madam Chair, probably the biggest project that is just about ready to be completed is the strategic plan for the Albany County campus. And hopefully it's within 10 days to 2 weeks of being ready to go. And that plan will really allow us to do a lot of educational programming, community development, workforce type stuff. And so it'll really help us program going into the fall and spring year. And I know Dr. Brady Hammond has got a lot of things going on. He has just had to get up to speed on a lot of stuff since the middle of August. And so next board meeting, we'll have probably a little bit more information on enrollment numbers and some of that data and what's going on with the strategic plan and the advisory council. Because I know that he's got several things in the works. In fact, he had just mentioned to me University of Wyoming and 2+2 agreement type discussions that have really escalated. And of course, what we're doing on the dual enrollment side with the high school and those programs there as well. And so we'll give you a little bit more of a breakdown of those activities next in October.
We will look forward to it.
Thank you. And I'm just going to ask Dr. Schaefer, there was the trustees, UW trustees just met. There's a fair amount in the paper regarding the economic diversification preliminary report and a fair amount of press on that. I'm just curious whether or not, were you invited to attend a trustee meeting? Because President Nichols talked about community colleges and the need for higher education attainment goals and workforce development and diversification. Anyway, there's a lot of press on it recently.
Yeah, Madam Chair, members of the board, Trustee Cato. No, I wasn't invited to the UW trustees. Certainly, we've been involved in conversations with folks associated with the Endow effort, and certainly with Dr. Nichols regarding that. You all probably recall I emailed you the report that's been circulating now, the one that was actually presented, I think, to the Revenue Committee, and was the first report of two that the Endow group will actually produce. And in the cover letter that came from the co-chairs from that really talked about a variety of things that the state has to embrace. And as Trustee Cato points out, one of the things is really looking at workforce and raising the educational attainment of the state, and there's significant work there. I think one of the reasons the university has really been drawn out on that is that the area where we probably have some of the greatest challenges actually raising the attainment level of baccalaureate degree and graduate degree holders in the state of Wyoming. You've seen some data that I've shared with you in the past that basically since 1979 to about 2014, we've raised the educational attainment of bachelor's degree, the proportion of our adult population bachelor's degree, about 4% over that time. Probably one of the biggest challenges that we have to face. Couple that with the report's call for greater focus on research associated with industries that will help us with diversification, patent generation, commercialization of research, tech transfer, and those things. I mean, there's a pretty heavy lift for the university in there as well. But I anticipate that the conversation surrounding Endow and the involvement of community colleges and higher ed is just going to escalate from here. Thanks, Butch. Yeah. Madam Chair, maybe before we pass on next, something just put on your radar. It's been about a year since we last had a joint meeting with the Albany County Campus Advisory Committee, and we may want to think about doing that again, where we hold a board meeting over in Laramie. If not this fall, then certainly in the springtime. But if that's something that interests you, we could start exploring dates with the advisory committee and see about getting that scheduled.
Good idea.
No, it's not. I'll tell you about that in a minute.
Derek, welcome and congratulations on your appointment to our board. We welcome you here and look forward to your reports each month. And you now have the floor.
So SGA, over the summer, we sent 3 of our senators off to PLS, the Presidential Leadership Summit. among them myself and Sebastian, who is the VP. So two of us found our way into executive positions up there. And that was a wonderful time. We enjoyed it immensely, and we made a lot of contacts there. We still talk to a lot of them. We've got a page where we do all sorts of things. The violence, the Antifa violence that Trump was a little slow to respond to. The students in PLS actually drafted something, and they made that statement public with the signatures of 100+ presidents of colleges. And that was all from that PLS page. So we definitely keep active there. And we learned plenty of great things we're bringing back for this year. And then the SSIS retreat. We had that retreat with our lovely Student Leadership Institute, and we got to know our RAs, our student ambassadors, and our CAD people. And that was another wonderful retreat for us. All of us got to go to that one, so that was pretty great. We're looking at bringing back student engagement with coffee breaks. And coffee breaks were something our old student government did back when it was ASG. So student engagement with student government, those are on the board. Elections are over, officers are in. As I've said, Sebastian Houston is the VP. Our president is Chris Smith, and ex officio. We're looking at the scholarship we started fundraising on 2 semesters ago. Unfortunately, we didn't see a lot of progress with it at all, and then any progress we made slipped out. But we're looking at finishing it this semester.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
Please, I'm interrupting, but how do you set up your scholarship?
See, that's something I've been asking around. I asked President Schaefer earlier this afternoon a bit about it because I wasn't entirely sure. There's something that was started, and we were told that we needed to fundraise $5,000 total, and President Schaefer kindly volunteered to match it $2,500. So we only have to raise $2,500, thankfully. And I really don't know too much about it other than that. I was planning on getting in touch with Lisa from the LCCC Foundation and see where to go from there.
She will help you a lot.
But yes, we're definitely excited to get that fundraising done.
Good
done
one.
with this semester.
Sure.
And 2 more things. We're going to be starting a new club. Due to some interest in one of my classes, we found an advisor to host the club. It's a D&D club. So it's a fun new club to add to our roster of 30-some.
D&D?
Dungeons and Dragons.
Okay.
I'm a different generation.
Yeah, he said it's pretty old.
I got it. Not an old rule. Butch, did you get that?
Dungeons and Dragons, I
thank
heard
you.
of D&D,
See, I don't even heard about it.
but not D&D.
Go ahead.
I thought it was drunk drivers.
Oh.
I'm not sure I can go to a club like that.
No, I understand.
Glad to know that.
And then the last point was I had heard some student interest in vending in the Pathfinder and Flex Tech buildings. Some of our classes, I have a physiology class late in the afternoon, 5:30 to 8. And some of my classmates have expressed interest in seeing vending in those buildings just because for part of our class, we do get breaks and we can come over to the cafe, which is open until about 7 in our CCC, but it's kind of a hop and skip away. And I just wanted to bring that up. I haven't gotten too much info on that yet, and we may look at polling the student body and see what they think in general.
That's a good idea.
And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Excellent. Any questions? You've done a great amount of work in a very short time. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Keep coming back.
I will.
I know. Thank you. New business. That would be me. And first of all, I would just like to say that there were some of us that went to this amazing event for Archie, who was an activist wins citizenship award by the League of Women Voters. She is a star in our midst. And if you saw it in the paper, I can pass it around, but I know you don't live here, so. Anyway, I'm so proud of her and her family for all the hardship that they've been through, and to raise two lovely and bright daughters who work for us here at LCCC. So I was honored to be there. Next, we have our self-evaluation. And last year, we asked these questions of ourselves. They're pretty simple. First is, what does the board do well? So I would like you to be thinking about these questions. What can the board do better? And two major challenges. Last year, we said excluding budget. I think I'd probably exclude it this year too, because we don't really have a lot of control over it, unless you have a special budget item. Vicky's going to send out on Thursday, September 28th, the board, we will receive the evaluation on the internet. On Thursday, from Thursday, September 28th through Wednesday, October 11th, we will have time to submit our results to Vicki. And on the 12th, the responses will be compiled for the board meeting on the 18th.
Madam Chair, the results will actually be submitted online now.
Online, and then we will discuss them here at the meeting. Will we do that in executive session?
No, ma'am.
Why not? Because we're evaluating ourselves and we want to speak honestly. Why do we need to have that as an open meeting?
Because it's not an exception in Wyoming statutes.
But the evaluation of the president is?
It's the board evaluation.
Yeah.
Right, it's a personnel matter when it's your employee, you're not an employee.
That's right, we're freebies.
Thank you, Tara.
You're welcome.
Now we know what we're going to do. I like challenge once in a while. Thank you. So is there anything else, Vicki, that we need to say about that? Okay, thank you for the setting me straight. Do you have anything else, Dr. Schaefer?
No, ma'am. Members of the board, happy to help with the evaluation as you need me to, which means Vicki will help with most of it. So
She's amazing. I think I did it last year, and it was torturous and long because I'm not as good a typer as she is.
Madam Chair, are you still in new business?
I am.
I'd like to make a suggestion for the trustees going to the ACCT conference. When you get there, you're going to register, and you get a rather overwhelming document of the agenda. It will identify some 50 concurrent best practices sessions that will occur over the next 2.5 days. And I would encourage the four of you, I know our chair lady has been there before, but I would encourage the group to, once you've registered, to get together maybe over coffee and review these concurrent sessions and see which ones you might want to kind of spread out and cover.
Okay.
And I know my first time going to an ACCT conference, I was overwhelmed with that agenda. I looked at it and I said, oh my God, what am I going to go to? So I would really encourage you to have that conversation.
Can I make another statement? There's an app that you can download.
Right, I saw that.
And it shows every single one of them, and you can put your schedule on it. You can check in when you're in the, and it's very, so I think if we're all on it, everybody could see everybody's calendar. That's to where.
You might have to help some of us, but thank you very much.
Well, that's a good practice that they're providing then.
Yeah.
Because I don't believe that was available 4 years ago.
Yeah, it's really nice. It's
Madam Chair.
Yeah.
Trustee Erickson, I've been completely overwhelmed by the agenda that we've received in our emails. So I appreciate that advice, and I think that's a good idea for the four of us to do that.
We'll meet there.
And Madam Chair, members of the board, I promised Trustee Soto that I would go through and try to earmark some that I thought would be interesting, and I've started that process, but I'm happy to share, my thoughts on the sessions with the entire board.
That's great. Now,
No, I'm not going to have gone through it because it is quite overwhelming, isn't it?
you're going to send it to us by email.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, Don?
No.
That's very good information. Additional items, board correspondence. I have to look that up. Did we have any?
You did, Madam Chair, members of the board. I've already covered the second one, which was the FAFSA challenge. And then the first one is just recognizing our wonderful folks who helped put on Wyoming Girls State. This was the first time that Girls State was held here in Cheyenne. I believe it's traditionally been in Powell. And they absolutely fell in love with our staff and our facilities. So I think we'll have a return visit from Girls State next year and well into the future. So really an exceptional event. And as folks typically do when they work with us, highlighting wonderful people like Arlene Lester and Mrs. Melissa Gallant and Roxy in her role with this. So that's the other correspondence you received.
And I ran into Melissa down there for our board dinner, and she said that she's been after this event for years, and now she has it on our books for the next 3 years. So we will be seeing them again. And actually, I was out here, we were giving scholarship for the CRMC volunteers, and we were sitting down outside the cafeteria, and these young ladies came through, and they had so much excitement to them, and I think they were thrilled to be here. So it was fun to actually see it happening. But that these ladies, Arlene, Melissa, and Roxy, they just do awesome work. So thank you, Jim.
Yep, you're welcome.
Yeah, I think we already went through the FAFSA. October 18th will be our next meeting. We'll get that information. And now we'll move to public comment. Is there anyone here who would like to make public comment? Ladies?
Yes, I would.
Would you like to step to the mic, please? If you all four can
I
go.
do have a question. However, what I would like to comment on was on the agenda. So can I do that? I'm a little confused.
Why not? Yes,
Okay,
please.
thank you.
And please introduce yourself.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me this minute to talk. My name is Gail Heimbach. I'm a fairly new resident to Cheyenne. I came from Guernsey. I was formerly the community education coordinator at Guernsey, working through Eastern Women College. And so I'm very familiar with life enrichment and community education. One of the first things I wanted to do when I moved here was to sign up for water exercise class, which I did. And the other visitors who are here also are students in water exercise, and we're here to, of course, express our dismay and displeasure with this decision to eliminate the pool. I was tempted to come in a bathing suit with a life preserver that said "Save the pool," but I didn't. I didn't expose you to that. But I guess I would remind you, I do certainly understand that students are number one priority for you, as they were when I was working for EWC. But this is the community. The community are the voters. Are they going to approve a recreation facility? They don't have a history of doing that, do they, in this community? I've only lived here about a year, but I was familiar with all of those previous elections when that issue was not passed. My question then too is if the bond issue does not pass, what will you do with the pool? This is a one-issue election, I believe. Is that correct? I don't think there's anything else on the ballot in November, Dr. Schaefer, Mr. Schaefer?
No, Madam Chair, members of the board.
I think that you're going to have to get the word out. You're going to have to go door to door. I think that is what EWC did a few years ago to get their bond issue passed to build a new facility. People don't read the paper. People don't come to meetings. That's a reality, of which I'm sure you're aware. So we just want to express that we're deeply dismayed that the pool will not be there for this community and for South Cheyenne. I think it's a huge loss for South Cheyenne to lose that recreational facility. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Thank you, lady.
Oh, just seemed to give more sense.
I too am here because of my dismay at the pool going away. My name is Ellen Southwell. I have been a resident of Cheyenne for some time. I have utilized the water aerobics program off and on for years. And it has become increasingly apparent the pool programs were not supported. There wasn't a willingness to advertise the classes. I will tell you that having PT recently, talking to different people about different things that physical therapists can utilize in this community and do, they didn't even know there was a pool at LCCC. How can you get people into the pool if they don't know it's here? I made myself notes because I am not a public speaker. Of course, now I can't read them because I don't have my glasses on. I've had thoughts running through my head as I thought about it. I know the figures I've heard today is a $14 million remodel on the rec facility. The figure I heard from somewhere else was it's $1 million to renovate the pool. That's not that big a figure in the big picture of things. I heard today something about what was it? You talked about the bathroom in some lounge that's going to be on the 3rd floor of this new facility. It saddens me that that's more important than having a pool for the community to use. I think it's something that benefits everybody. I agree that we have not been having luck getting a rec center passed. My thought is if you get this rec facility remodeled, you get it up and running, why not open it up to the community who's voting on this and who you're trying to get to give money to it with a membership fee so that they can use it? Perhaps hours for physical therapy facilities to come in and use the pool with a fee, a cost to it. So it helps bring income back into the college, and it helps bring interest from the community back into the college.
Thank you, Ellen.
Thanks.
Hi, my name is Linda Swain. I want to thank you for letting us have a few minutes to speak. I'd like to speak on your children, your grandchildren, and the students for swim lessons. How important is it for them to learn to swim? I ran a before and after school program for the government in Ramstein, Germany. Unfortunately, we had a child that drowned. So this is very near and dear to my heart, that your community knows how to swim. I'd like to know if the students here were asked about the pool. I don't really know if you were or not. I'd like to know if what their input would be. Kind of cute. I was in the Monday, Wednesday class in the evening. Then you opened up a Tuesday, Thursday class. So I went for all 4 evenings. Well, all of a sudden I noticed when we ended class, your female students showed up. And lo and behold, we had male students show up. So we had a big group of your students that came on those evenings. We were happy to have them. They were great kids. I also am diabetic. I don't know what any of you know about diabetes, but we have a blood count that we take every 3 months. When I started with my doctor, mine was 14. It should be about 7. Mine currently is 7 because of the pool. So that tells me that health-wise, we all could use some exercise. Absolutely. It's also my understanding that the base pool is closed at FU Warren. I don't know the reason why. My husband's retired Air Force. He was in 24 years. I do also know that the survival equipment folks that take care of your helicopter pilots and crew use your pool for survival classes. And without the base pool and your pool, I was kind of thinking maybe we could get the base community in on your pool. Who knows? Maybe we could get some government funding. I just think it's something worth checking. You never know. And I also thought possible membership fees. And why don't we have a student swim team? Why don't we have water polo? Why don't, we have the facility. Why not? Give it a try. You talk about other teams that come and it's exciting. Well, I'm sure there are swim teams that would come and have just as much fun, And I guess my last comment is the word community is in the name of your college. So I really would like for you to somehow try to involve the community and save the pool. Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. Next.
I did an email.
Thank you for coming this evening. It's time for adjournment.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I really appreciate these ladies coming and expressing their concern. And I can share their concern because I have a wife who is also an individual that participates like you do. My wife, Jackie, and she was very saddened when she heard that it was a possibility. I think, though, that if you were to chat with her now, she understands that the decision was not an easy one, that we had to make return on investments that would be in the best interest, not only for our students, but for the community. And I'm concerned about the two comments that were made here that will probably be reported, that the recreation center did not make it in the past. We're not talking about a recreation center. We're talking about our recreation athletic complex that happens to have recreational activities. It's an athletic facility that has opportunities for the community. No doubt about it. And yes, community is part of our name. And we do have an obligation to do the best we can to provide our facilities for all the people of our service area. And I just want to thank the ladies for expressing their concern, but assure them from my point of view, when I voted for the renovation of the rec center, I was voting in what I consider to be the best interest of our students and the community as a whole.
Thank you, John.
Madam Chair, I move that we move into executive session to discuss the legal matter.
A second, please.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
I was a second. No, right. Go
Thank
ahead.
you.
All right.
Thank you
Thanks for coming, ladies.
You two both, you two.
Go ahead with trustee Soto.
Okay, Soto is the